Hello everyone, welcome to Haiku Talk. This is Ben Ga, your friendly neighborhood haiku poet and host of Haiku Talk. And today we're going to be talking about a one-line poem, one-line haiku from John Stevenson in the new issue of Acorn. That would be issue 47, fall of 2021. So sit back, get comfortable, and let's haiku. Okay, welcome back. We are looking at the one-line haiku from John Stevenson from the latest issue of Acorn. And what's really nice about this is that I think it does a really good job of breaking down kind of how one-line haiku work. There's a lot of different variables that you can put into a one-liner. This one uses a technique that we haven't touched on yet. So far, all of the haiku and the senryu that we've touched on in episodes 1 through 5 have used a technique called fragment and phrase, where you have a fragment, such as a specific noun, and then you have a phrase that accompanies with it. And the juxtaposition of the fragment and the phrase together makes the fragment and the phrase pop. It ties them together and makes them become more than the sum of their parts. So in that regard, that break between the fragments and the phrase is something that's called a cut. And in those instances, the structure of the poem with the fragment and the phrase is there, and there's an obvious cut in just the simple formatting of the piece that makes the two things juxtaposed together and pop. This one uses a different technique, which is called, what I call anyway, the middle pivot. And that is that cut, in this case, is a phrase, and it sits between what you call the first line and the third line. And in that, as it's sitting in between the first and the third, that middle pivot works both with the first line and the last line. So you can read it, so it kind of moves in between the two and ties them together. Now, how are we doing a first line and a third line in a one-line poem? You'll see in just a moment. Here is the piece from John Stevenson. Alone, among others, summer cloud. Alone, among others, summer cloud. Brilliant. John is one of the best in the best working today. It's definitely been an influence on myself. And again, you can't get much more simple, succinct, and suggestive language here to nail home all of the ways that a haiku works. I mean, this is 5 words, people. 5 words! It's awesome. Now, as you can see by the way that it was structured, because I've had it up on the screen here, I'm going to put it up here again, where we have alone, space, among others, space, summer cloud. So what I like about this one-liner, there's a helicopter buzzing outside the window, if you can hear that, my apologies. But it almost, with the spaces in there, you can almost see how this could be written in 3 lines vertically, with alone being the first line, among others being the second line, and summer cloud being the third line. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he keeps it all on one line. And when do you use a one line and when do you use 3 lines to do your poem? It really just depends on the poem. In this case, I think he made a fantastic choice to put this all as a one-line haiku, because as you're moving along that line, the one line of this poem, and putting the spaces between essentially the sections of the poem, he allows you to discover each new section within those spaces. So rather than having the lines wrap, he just gives you pause, puts space in there, literal space, to allow you to consider everything before you get to that final piece, that final 2 words of the poem. So it starts out with the first word of alone. You know how I feel at this point about one line or one word first lines, and I really like one line in this kind of one liner here, the one word beginning this piece, one line, alone, space. It is a one word essentially to begin this line, and alone is one of those great suggestive words. We all know what it means. We all have an idea of what that means. So when we hear that word alone, or we encounter it in a poem, we go someplace specific. We go someplace unique. I mean, John doesn't give us any context for this at all. It's just the word alone. And as I come to this poem, when I hear that word alone, I mean, I take it within myself to feel alone. So I internalize that, and I now am in a place all by myself, perfectly alone. Space. Now that second 2 words, among others, very interesting. So right now, I'm feeling alone. The person, me, reading the poem, I am feeling alone among others. And definitely know that feeling. Definitely been there before. And this is how that middle phrase, this is the pivot, it attaches itself so nicely to the first word, alone among others. Brilliant. Again, 3 words. And already you have such a strong feeling, a strong tone, a strong sense of place. I'm sure anybody that reads this, when you encounter those 3 words, alone, space, among others. I mean, I think it would be hard pressed for people to not be able to describe in great detail what that scenario is, where they found themselves feeling that way. And again, that's what haiku does. It invites the reader in to the poem and allows them to attach their own life experience, their own meaning to these words, to this scene that's been set up, so that they find themselves in the poem. Again, I'm not reading John Stevenson's specific moment here. I'm experiencing my own moment, just as you all out there are experiencing your own moment when you read this piece. Alone among others. So nice. So nice. He concludes it with there's another space after among others, to summer cloud. Wow. Summer cloud. So suddenly the poem leaves the internal myself alone among others, summer cloud. And suddenly I'm looking up at the sky. I know what season it is because it says summer. I get the idea. For me, I'm placing this at some time during the daylight where I can see clouds, although it perfectly can exist at night. And seeing that one cloud among others that I'm looking at that individually. I'm picturing it by itself. I'm picturing it, existing by itself in the context of others. And while this is not a metaphor or anything, you can't help but attach yourself to this moment and see yourself like that cloud, alone among others. And it could make you feel lonely, this poem could resonate in you of times in your past where you've, just felt alone in the crowd. Also, another possibility is when you're out cloud gazing, as hopefully people out there have done in their past, still maybe hopefully do as adults. Go out, lay down, look at the clouds. You fixate on one cloud among the others, that lone cloud among the others. And you look at it and it takes shapes and you follow it and you see how it moves and how it glides across the sky. And you just follow that one among all of the other ones. So it doesn't have to be lonely. And another element to that alone, you could be that one person by themselves looking at clouds. You could be feeling alone amongst the company that you're with looking at clouds. I mean, there's so many different ways to look at this poem, to look at this moment, experience this moment, that it's amazing. Again, that's 5 words, pretty impressive. So when I mentioned also that that among others is a middle pivot, so I touched a little bit on how it links to alone, but if you also just say among others, summer cloud, and you don't have the alone up front, among others, summer cloud still works. It still speaks to a specific summer cloud amongst other ones. It's a singling out of a summer cloud among others. So that middle pivot works both towards alone and summer cloud, and because it sits right there in the middle, it ties together alone and summer cloud and brings about a pop, a meaning, a moment that you're going to linger in. I linger in. I've lingered in this since I read it. It's a fantastic piece. It's one I'll come back to many times. And it's just a great way to illustrate how you can do a one-line haiku. There are other techniques with one-liners, which we'll get to in the coming episodes, I am sure. But this is a good first beginner, I think. Not only does you can see the sparse, the simple, suggestive language in it, but it's so nicely broken up into 3 sections that almost would look like 3 lines, with alone, among others, summer cloud. Super great. And that's it today. Thank you for tuning in. Hit like and subscribe to this piece. It certainly helps the channel. If you want to share it with others. Spread the news, spread the word around this channel. Again, my name is Ben Ga, and I'm your friendly neighborhood haiku poet. The goal is to go through one poem that comes in a new issue of a journal, explain how it works, why it works, and give you a better understanding about haiku and senryu and why they're much more than a 575 template that everyone's been taught in school. So far beyond that. I mean, this is 5 words on one line, and it cuts deep. It takes you places. Hopefully you're starting to get that by now if you've watched all 6 or a couple of these. But this is a serious form. It deserves serious attention. And the poets that I'm featuring here and the journals that I'm featuring here take this form very seriously, as I do. So again, thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next time.